Hi everyone, Chris from Divine Key, and I'm here to do something a little bit different. We're going to call it Fab for Friday, and I want to talk about the different suits. I noticed recently that there are sets of four things that seem to have significance, um, different things. And I'm going to start with the tarot because tarot is what I'm comfortable with. So I want to talk about the four suits of the tarot. If you haven't worked with them before, there are four suits. They correspond to what would be in the typical playing cards that you would also see. Um, but for the tarot, we have the suit of wands, the suit of swords, the suit of cups, and the suit of pentacles. Now, each of these suits pertain to a different aspect of your life. So, what we're going to be talking about today is how these different suits correspond to the real world and how you can interpret them when you're asking questions of the tarot. When you want to gain insight on a particular area, you can see what that suit has to say to you related to that. So we're going to take a suit at a time. We're going to start with the suit of wands. So the suit of wands is all about passion. It's about your gut feeling. It's about what drives you forward. It moves the energy of the tarot. And I picked random numbers. So depending on the number, it can give you more specific information. But in general, the suit of wands talks about new growth, new beginnings, something that fires you up. It comes from your solar plexus chakra, and it has to do with the energy and how you bring things to life, how you show up in the real world with the energy when you take action related to something. And what I wanted to do was I have different tarot decks, and I want to show you the difference in the same suit using different decks. So the first one, this would be the standard Rider-Waite deck that you probably see online. It's the most common one. It's one that I learned on 40 years ago. So this would be the Eight of Wands, and it has to do with energy and the movement of energy. Then the next one that we have that's very similar is the Gilded Tarot by Ciro Marchetti. Same suit, so same card, same exact card in a different deck. And you can see that they're very similar. I'm going to actually leave the Rider-Waite one up because that's the one you're probably going to see more often. And then I'll show you the corresponding ones. So this is the Gilded Tarot by Ciro Marchetti. And you can see it's a very similar look. Now, the energy of the wands suit is going to be the same no matter what deck you work with. However, depending on the deck, it will bring a different layer of energy. And that's why I work with different decks, because it's not always just the traditional. Sometimes you want more details. So when you work with different decks, you can get different aspects of it. Then we have, let's see what would be the most likely to go with. So then we have, this one is actually changes the suit, so we'll wait for that one. Here is the Eight of Wands in the Golden Botticelli deck. And again, you can see the wands appear, and it has a similar energy but different. There's still a quality of movement here with the cherub coming in, but it does change the feeling of it. Next, we have the Alice in Wonderland or the Tarot in Wonderland deck. And again, you can see the wands show up and there's movement. They're in the sky. So it's a similar feeling. When you see this, you know what you're looking at. And the energy is similar but a little bit different. In the Tarot in Wonderland deck, for me, the energy shifts a bit in that it's more fragile. Because here we have actual sticks and here we have the cards. So it's more of air coming in. Then to really switch it up, we have something that, although we can see it's wands, this is the Crystal Tarot. And we've got the Eight of Wands going on, so we still have wands, but the movement has become more static. So you kind of have to sit with this energy a little bit and really feel in and see what message it's bringing to you in relation to the other cards, in relation to what energy is coming up for the question that you're asking. So that's the Crystal Tarot. And then we really move into something a bit different. This is the Line Strider deck, which is quite different, but it still has the same energy. It's still movement, it's still wands, it's still things happening. The wands in this card are not quite as visible, so you might not know it's the suit of wands if the words weren't there, but you get the energy of it. The energy is the same. And then we move into the Wild Unknown deck, which is quite different. And again, you can see the wands are there, so the wands are visible. You know you have the Eight of Wands suit, and you know what card it is. And you can see with the lightning bolt coming down that it's creating an energetic feel, but it is quite a different feel from the traditional deck. Now it's the same card, but it looks very different. And finally, the final deck I'm going to talk about is the Chrysalis deck. And I left that for last because although it looks very similar to the Rider-Waite in this instance, they changed the name of the suit. So in this deck, it's called the Spirals. So you'll see some decks will change the name of the suit, but they still follow a very traditional feel to the card. And you can see the movement of the energy with this one. Very similar motion in this card. So when we talk about wands, we're talking about movement of energy. We're talking about passions. We're talking about what fires you up. And we're talking about how you can move the energy forward. So a good question to go around the wands, or when you see the wands, is how does this move my energy? What is this telling me about how I'm moving my energy? So that is the suit of wands. So next up is the suit of swords. So it's kind of the opposite of the wands, and that's why I put it second, because it has to do with the brain. It has to do with logic, and it has to do with communication, and you're all up in your head when you talk about the swords suit. So this is the traditional Rider-Waite version of the Four of Swords, and it has to talk, in this case, it talks about the four is stability and being still, and sometimes can have an element of stagnation to it, of being stuck. In the case of this particular suit in this deck, it's asking about, or it's suggesting a time of rest and rejuvenation, of being still to allow the message to come in. And I want to do it in the same order. So let me go backwards. The next one up is the Gilded. So the Gilded Tarot by Ciro Machete is next. And you can see very, very similar energy coming in. Still a message of rest and relaxation. You still have three swords hanging above and one below, and a knight. So it really echoes strongly the same kind of energy that you have with the traditional deck. So just to reiterate, the suit of swords has to do with logic and communication and truth. It is cutting away all the bullshit. I like to say that about the swords, where you cut through everything to get to the heart of the matter of what it really means and what the truth is of it. So this is the Golden Botticelli coming through. With similar energy, you can see the four swords, they do appear, and it's an energy of literally cutting yourself off so that you can really understand what's in your mind. Whenever I see nudity in the tarot, it tells me that we're getting to the real core, the stripping away everything that doesn't belong and getting to the truth of it. So in this case, that's what you're getting here. And then we have the Alice in Wonderland, Four of Swords. It's a very similar feeling, although it looks quite different. But you still have a person who's basically resting, and there's swords that are near him. So it's a similar energy, but, it is a chance to disconnect from the physical and think logically about things. Come at it from a very logical standpoint as opposed to what's driving you forward energetically. And again, this is the Wild Unknown version of it. And we see the Four Swords, and then the emphasis is on what we think, how we go forward not with passion, but with logic and intelligence, and how we communicate that. This would be the Lion Strider deck, the same card, Four of Swords, and the lion is not charging forward, not pressing forward on its the roar. The lion is resting, retreating, taking some time, inward, quiet thinking. This is a little bit different feeling with the Crystal Tarot coming in. Still Four Swords coming in, and it does give you the same kind of idea of pointing the logic inward, of focusing on a central truth. So that's kind of important. That's what it's capturing in this imagery. And related to the question that you're asking, you can get more information. And then finally, the Chrysalis Tarot, which changes the suit of swords to scrolls. But again, it's a similar energy. You can see there's four, and it's centered. So it is about centering, going inside, and really finding that core truth. Retreating, rejuvenating, replenishing, all of that comes in with this suit. So that's the sword suit. Then we're going to move to the cups suit. So when we talk about the cups, we're talking about emotion, how you care about things, how it affects you in your heart space as opposed to your gut. It doesn't drive you forward always. In this case, also the Four of Cups is talking about a disillusionment, a feeling of not being in your heart space, of not being happy and looking for something more. And when we bring in the next version of it, that would be the Gilded. It's a very similar feeling. They look very similar. You can see the Four Cups showing up. And it's still talking about emotion. It's still talking about how you feel about things. And it's also relationships. How do you relate to people? How do you relate to the world? How do you relate to yourself even? And how deeply do you care about something? And the Four of Cups is indicating that you don't care very much. Now, other versions of the cup, other numbers will give you a different feeling. But you can see the cups showing up in the suit, just like we talked about. And then you have the Golden Botticelli, Four of Cups. You can see the cups there displayed. And it's similar. It does change quite a bit, but it's very similar, looking off into the distance and not really focusing on what is currently in your heart space. And we have the Tarot in Wonderland version of it. Very similar. You can see a watery feel to it. Cups are water. And the emotion related to it, which is not really happy with it, sitting there very forlorn, crying the tears of the turtle, if I remember Alice in Wonderland correctly, the mock turtle in this case, and not happy with the situation. There's a sense of sadness related to it, of not being satisfied. And as we move to the Lion Strider deck, it's kind of hard to see that one because it's kind of pale, but it is kind of vaporous, and it's kind of what's interesting about the Lion Strider is that typically I would associate a blue color maybe or a green color with the heart space and with the cup energy, because it's watery and it's heart based, and it gives you more of a sense of illusionment, because it feels like smoke, like the artist of this deck really captured it in the color with the smoke, the feeling of not being solid. It's emotion, it's flowing. Then we go to the Crystal Tarot, and we can see the Four Cups showing up there. There are other elements that come into play here. So again, like the cups are about emotions. It's about how you feel about things. It's about your relationships. It's about how you interact on an emotional level with people. And each deck will bring a completely different feeling, even though it's the same suit. And then to really switch it up, the Wild Unknown brings in this kind of rat image sitting on top of the cups. And it's interesting because, a rodent like that is going to be seeking to scavenge what's left behind very often and sneaking into places. And here it shows that it's on top of the emotions, which feels to me like it's not really a part, like it doesn't have emotion related to it. It's just out there trying to survive, which is completely different than the original feeling, which is the choices that you have emotionally and what you're going to do with it. So the cups are a suit of emotion, and in this case, the Four of the Wild Unknown is a disconnect from that. So when you're using that deck, it's a little bit different. Although this is a disconnect from the emotion as well. I mean, he's not holding the cups, he's not reaching the cups, so there is connection still there. And then finally, it changes to the suit of mirrors when we come to this suit of cups. It's called mirrors in the chrysalis deck. But you can feel it's a very similar energy to it, where not paying attention to anything around you, kind of in your own world, caught up in the emotion of it. So that would be the cups in that deck. And then finally, moving from the emotional space into the physical space, we have the Pentacles. This is the Eight of Pentacles. Talks about hard work and striving toward bringing something to reality in the 3D world. Pentacles are all about what's happening here that you can touch and feel and that other people see, and your resources related to it, and creating something that is long lasting. And it's a sense of work, of the work that you do in the world, not what you're called to accomplish, not your passion necessarily, although it could be, but what do you physically bring to the world. Here is the Gilded, which is a very similar. I find the Gilded Tarot is very close to the traditional, with a little bit more color and items that come through, symbology that comes through. So it is about bringing things to the real world and how hard you're working, and the idea that practice makes perfect, and that it takes many repetitions in the physical world to get things to where you want them to be. And then we come in with the Botticelli, the Golden Botticelli. Again, it's a worker card. It's an apprentice card. It's a similar energy of bringing things to reality. It's manifesting it in the 3D world. So Pentacles is coming in. How does it appear in the 3D world? We go to the Crystal Tarot, and although we don't have that sense immediately of anchoring in the 3D world, there's a weightiness to it. There is, as you look at the symbols and as you feel the card, you can see the similarity in the Pentacle suit coming through with that. The Tarot in Wonderland is also very similar. You see the king trying to create something real in his world by writing on a tablet, and maybe having to do it multiple times because it takes practice to get it right. What we imagine to create in the real world. And then we have the Wild Unknown, which is very much of a worker type. When we think of the industry of the spider and creating the web, and having to go back and repair it, or having to do multiple renditions of the same thing as it goes outwards and makes the web bigger, that is creating something in the real world from nothing, pretty much. And the Line Strider deck looks like that. I know it's hard to see. So I can get it to focus. There we go. It is about creating something in the real world, what your resources are, and how you show the world who you are. That's the Pentacle suit. And then finally, the Chrysalis deck brings the Pentacles in as a suit of stones. So that's what we have going on here. And I think it's interesting they depicted it as Stonehenge, which looks like, how could they possibly do that? And it really brings in the energy of creating something permanent in the world. So this is kind of why I ended with this one, because the suit of pentacles or stones is a permanent thing. And even if you have primitive, it appears to be primitive tools, the wonder that you can create when you bring it to the physical world. So that is all the suits and how they look in different decks. So again, let's just go through it. So when we have the wands, that is the suit of passion, of your gut instinct, of moving energy, of going forward, whether it be emotionally or physically, or it's the energy involved related to that. Then we have the swords, which is the logic. It's the communication. It's the thought process. It's finding the core truth. And then we have the cups, which is the suit of emotion and how you care, your relationships, how you interact with people on an emotional level. And finally, we have pentacles, which is the suit of manifesting in the 3D world, manifesting something physical. So that is your Fab 4 Friday. I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, Chris from Divine Key, spelled QI. Find me on Facebook. Google me. I have some things on YouTube. I have a website in progress that I'm rebuilding. So if you have questions, pop them in the comments, or like, share, subscribe. Come visit me. Hopefully we have more coming up to talk about, and enjoy your fabulous Friday. We'll talk to you soon. Be well. Bye.